Welcome to the Catchpoint News Catchup. Now, if you've worked in tech for more than 15 minutes, you know the news moves faster than a well-tuned website loading LCP. This series will help you catch up with the headlines that matter, as well as provide both context and perspective, because, like your network, here at Catchpoint, we are highly opinionated. And with me today on what has become a Desi-licious episode of Catchpoint News Catchup, I have again Payal Chakraborty, who is our delightful product marketing manager. Welcome back.
Hello, Leon. Thank you for hosting us back.
Not a problem. And also we have this week Ankit Kumar, who is our value engineering manager. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Leon. Excited to be here.
All right. I think we should just dive straight into the news. I think I will kick it off. The hidden carbon cost of your images. Why green development starts with optimization. I really enjoyed this. This is coming from a writer that I have not seen until recently. I think between May and today, this person has put out 52 articles, all really focused on image optimization and the impact and the benefit of making your images clearer, tighter, smaller. And I want to say that this article really underscored sort of the bottom line for companies as one of the big reasons why, which is that images that are not optimized, that are too large, are using up a huge amount of energy along the way. It's describing the cost, not just in dollars and cents, but also environmental impact, which really comes down to the electricity it takes to download the image multiplied by all the people on the website. They then analyzed what the difference would be if the image had been optimized. And I think the main takeaway is in the first paragraph, which you can see on the screen. Last week, I calculated the carbon footprint of our company's website. The results were shocking. Our unoptimized images were responsible for generating 47 tons of CO2 annually, equivalent to driving 117,000 miles in a gasoline car. A single poorly optimized hero image was consuming more energy per year than the average household uses in a month. So, once again, this caught my eye for two reasons. First of all, I'm a big fan of reducing waste and trying to be as ecologically friendly as you can without living in a cave and eating scraps and things like that. I'm not a big fan of suffering. But I also think that the thing I like most about this article is how they connect the relatively squishy environmentalist angle to hard business logic. Optimized images equate to faster load times, which means happier users. For example, some statistics that I used in a webinar just last week. Forrester noticed and recorded in one of their experience indexes, 73% of customers say they will abandon a brand after 2 bad digital experiences. Not just they'll bail on the page, they will leave you entirely after 2 bad digital experiences. And meanwhile, Google did a speed industry benchmark report and said that 53% of mobile users will drop off a page if it takes more than 3 seconds to load. And we all know that big images, giant unoptimized images, are one of the biggest causes, one of the main causes for slow page load times. And in my mind, along with, again, the ecology angle and the climate angle, this is exactly the right way to present a optimization project to your business. Not to say, oh, it's right for the environment. Not that that's a bad idea, but it's not a compelling business justification. Instead, to say, this is better for our users. We'll retain more of our customers. We're going to have a better experience overall. Framing it in the language of business is always an important and powerful way to get something done. That was my take on it. What do you both think about it?
Yeah, I think it's a really nice article, Leon. It's something what we have been talking to our customers in the past. Not to forget about the green page test, what we provide, which is more on making sure how you capture, the
I actually have that
footprint.
up. For those people who don't know, so WebPageTest is the free. This is not a commercial for Catchpoint, but it is a Catchpoint show. So, we have a free system called WebPageTest, and it has carbon control built in. You don't have to do all the math that this person did. We do the math for you. So yeah, we have that. Sorry, keep going. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, thanks for pulling that up. But I think there was really interesting data. I actually made a note of it. Something like global image data transfer 2.8 billion GB, which was quite huge in terms of the number, right? One thing which I also really like about this article, it's talking about two frontiers. One, of course, how you reduce carbon footprint, but the other one is speed. Everything is latency. We always say that every millisecond counts. So how can you optimize it? Typical story of something sometimes even small efforts of caching most of your static images on CDNs and serving it from your nearest edge pop really helps in reducing carbon footprint and improving the page performance, right? So I certainly feel those are two interconnected. You improve your performance, you reduce the footprint, right? So that's something really interesting, which I found about it. The other area, I know we are standing at sort of a paradox of the whole AI thing, where the organizations are spending trillions of dollars and spinning up new data centers. So that has a different take on the carbon footprint. Probably let's not get there at this stage yet. But as we have something what we have control today. So definitely make use of this to make sure we cut out carbon footprint.
Exactly. Payal, Ankit clearly does not know how much of a trigger the entire concept of AI is. So we'll let it go.
Yes.
We'll give him a mulligan. But Payal, any thoughts about this article?
Yes, I think this was a good refresher in terms of what digital solutions in terms of big images comes and what are the pros and cons it throws at us. And also, it's a good highlight to mention that Catchpoint is also adhering to the environmental, social, and governance standards of promoting a cleaner, greener environment. That's what I had to say.
Awesome. All right, Ankit, as our guest, you can pick up picking up on the line of AI. What's your article all about?
So this is my first show, so I was thinking of what topic I can choose. Nothing better than AI. The whole world is talking about it, and probably we are going to talk about it for some time. Probably one of the biggest disruptors in the technology stack what we have seen. So I thought of picking this up, and this was really interesting because of some of the recent AI observability solution what we have been talking to our customers. But this has a little different take apart from the observability, right? So this is more on everybody is going behind AI and trying to embed in the ecosystem and trying to solve a problem. Sometimes we also don't know what problems are. Are we oversimplifying things, or are we trying to solve something which there is no problem? Uh, but this article talks about we are at a very early stage of understanding how these AI systems. Now, these AI systems, we have seen evolution. We have seen evolution from ChatGPT, which broke the internet way back in 2022. We have seen the whole thing of organizations going behind creating their own chatbots. Now, recently, we have seen a lot of enterprises coming up with agentic AI, which is okay. It's more of an automation layer where you interact with LLMs or interact with different APIs, interact with different systems altogether, and then solve a problem, right? So this has a little different take in terms of how some of the chatbots, some of the LLMs, especially I think in this article, they have spoken about some examples where they asked who is going to be NFL champion, and then tested how good AI is or these LLM models are in predicting it. So the crux is it's still very new. There's still a lot of human element which is required to make sure that we are solving the right problem, or the automation what we are trying to do is cater to the right problem. um, and it's not about we just rely on AI and it's going to do everything, right? That's probably not the right way of looking at this. I'll probably end on something where I really found interesting. I have actually noted it down. So they have described AI as that friend who swears they are great at pool but never makes a shot, right? So still early stage. We are going to make it more better with different systems, which is going to be built around AI, but something for us to keep in mind at this stage.
Absolutely. Okay.
What do you guys think?
So, Payal, you know that you better start talking before I do because I will not stop on this topic. So go ahead. What are your thoughts about this?
All right. I would say I'm in huge favor of what AI helps us do. It kind of helps us cut a lot of slack when it comes to, researching information or trying to summarize stuff. But again, being said that, I've seen instances where it's kind of difficult to understand when is the modern, when is it hallucinating, how is it hallucinating, and how do we differentiate between what's the correct information at hand and what is something that is being presented to us, and how do we further differentiate the differentiation between what's right and what is being presented as right. So if we could make that correct, maybe AI could be a better game changer.
Right. Okay. So just for Ankit's information, on our very first episode of News Catchup, we were having this conversation about AI, and during the episode, I went and bought the domain name AIcurmudgeon.com. That's how I feel about it. That's how strongly I feel about it. And this article really does highlight one of my big pet peeves, which is the inherent belief by humans, not the problem with the technology, but the belief by humans, and especially humans who work in marketing, that AI is offering something that remotely resembles correct or factual answers. And it's not. It is a machine learning data analysis system that has been trained to do exactly one thing, which is predict the next most likely word, not the next most likely fact, not the next most likely correct thing, simply the next word in the sentence that will make the most sense linguistically. And that's where the confidence comes from. It's very confident that the sentence it just said was English, right? Or Spanish, or whatever, whatever language you're interacting with it. Um, it is a storytelling system. And I mean that in the broadest, tell me a story. It doesn't have to be real. Once upon a time, there was a prince who lived in just make up words. That's what, especially the chatbots, but even the underlying systems behind it, even things like, CodePilot is really a storytelling system with code. Tell me the next most likely function, the next most likely if statement within this. Now, in some cases, it works well, but it also doesn't have to be. It is not required to be correct or accurate. I've used CodePilot, and it will simply make up functions out of whole cloth that do not exist in Python or Perl or whatever it is that I'm coding in. Obviously, in Perl, you can make up anything, and it probably exists someplace. But that's my biggest challenge, is that humans need to be really aware that the thing they're interacting with is not intelligent. We'll forget the racist history of intelligence tests and that we don't really understand how to measure intelligence at all. We'll leave that aside. But just we need to be very clear that what we're getting is a storyteller, and that we have to check our facts in the same way, like you said. It reminds me of the TV show Cheers, where Cliff, the mailman, Cliff was very confident about everything he was saying. And it was clear that most of the stories he was telling were complete and utter, forgive me, bullshit. He was just making things up. And if we treat ChatGPT like Cliff from Cheers, I think that we would, have a little bit of skepticism, a little bit of, maybe I want to check that fact. I think we'd be better off. And also all the outrageous claims would be a little bit clearer. Okay, that is my soapbox. I apologize. It was just a little bit of a
No,
moment for
actually,
me.
that's really good. I just wanted to add one more point,
Sure.
especially with respect to the underlying challenges what this article talks about, but it also talks about a specific problem which industry is trying to solve, right? Now, do we rely on one LLM and it solves all my problem? Well, probably it's not great. But with the recent innovation of new protocols like MCP or agent to agent, well, I ask a certain question to my LLM that might not be that smart, but hey, they know where to go and fetch that answer and become smart and give the right answer. So I think that's the human element which makes the system more reliable. Make sure that you are not hallucinating, or even if you have hallucination, you have one or two steps to go back and fact check and then have the most relevant information. So probably more optimistic about all the different things which is coming around these LLMs with the support, It reminds me, I think I've spoken this before, it feels like we're in early 90s and the internet is still there and we are defining protocols as HTTP. It feels the same that we are defining things like MCP and agent to agent and more protocols to come. So
Right. I am not at all saying, for those people who want to put words in my mouth, which is fine, I don't care. I'm not saying AI is horrible or doesn't work. I'm not saying I hate AI. I hate the way a lot of people use AI. Again, that gormless, unskeptical view of, oh, it said it, so it must be true. That's like, no, really not. All right. Last article of the day. Payal, you've got a good one for us.
Yes. So let's get started. So there is this article that I read around CNET, a day without internet. I tried this digital detox and thrived. So I would say this recounts the experience unplugging for 24 hours. The pros included kind of a surprising sense of calm, a deeper focus, an appreciation for analog experiences like using a paper map, engaging in conversations, and being fully present. The absence of notifications allowed introspection and a break from the digital fatigue. However, there were certain drawbacks too. Without able to navigate, Google Maps led to a certain uncertainty, and the author risked missing urgent communications. It also highlighted that there was a digital divide. While the author could afford a voluntary break, many rely on connectivity for essential tasks. And that's something we shouldn't be forgetting. Like, for example, without GPS, the author relied on human directions in a paper map, which is great, but uncovering a more mindful way of travel. Yet, the experience also underscored privilege, especially when villages in remote regions were asked to kind of tell the author's phone for crucial needs. So yes, it's a mix and match of what you choose. Digital detox is said to be more like a privilege that you can afford, but for people who really who kind of depend on it, I think it's a necessity. That's what I have to say about it.
Nice. All right. Ankit, any thoughts before I dive in?
yeah, it's one of the article which is probably pitched at the right time during the vacation time, July, August. That's the best time we talk about this, and somewhere we all want to be in that space, right? Somewhere we have that hidden wish that, wow, could be a day where we don't have phones, we don't have all this internet, and we just enjoy it the way it is. So yeah, I think the article highlights good and bad. Of course, good is more on how can you be test your patience if you can be away from asking those search queries, or you know quench the thirst of your curiosity mind with Google search, but go figure it out by yourself, right? But at the same time, technology, going back to your definition, Leon, the tech stack or intelligence, the whole point of innovation and all this technology was to solve problems, right? So it is solving problem. So how do you find that balance? But at this time, probably it's also a time for us to reflect, take a break, and maybe have some time off and enjoy the nature.
Like they say, take a break, take a Kit Kat, and enjoy nature. Is that what you meant?
I like it.
That's probably a better one, yeah.
So this article is obviously interesting to me as an Orthodox Jew because we disconnect from anything. I like to say anything with an on switch is off limits once a week on the Sabbath or Shabbat. And so there's a few things that jumped out. First of all, I've got an entire, what's called a lightning talk, a 5-minute talk on this. I'll put a link in the description in case people happen to want to watch it. And in the talk, I do say, like, you read an article like this and you think, what kind of crazy wing nut is going to do something like that? And, I belong to a secret society of unhinged wing nuts who do that every week. And it really does change your frame of reference. First of all, it is very freeing. It is incredibly relaxing when you simply can't, you're, in my case, not permitted, but you have chosen not to engage with technology on those levels. It requires planning. And I think that's the part that a lot of folks miss or overlook, and it creates a less joyful, a less freeing experience because they've failed to plan or they don't realize the planning they need. For example, the article used that example of needing paper maps or whatever. every week before Shabbat starts, I have to think about what it is that I'm going to want to read, what I'm going to want to look at, where I might need to go. And I have to prepare for that because I'm not going to be able to just whip out my phone and take a look. So it requires a little bit of forethought, and it requires the structure to say, oh, again, for me, one day a week, I'm not going to go on a road trip. I'm not going to go to the mountains. I'm going to stay close to home. I'm going to visit with friends. I'm going to play board games with my family, because that is within the context of no electronics or no phone or no internet or whatever, wherever you choose to draw the line. Don't try to make your life normal and do all the things you normally do with this assistive device when you have taken away the assistive device. It requires, again, that planning. With a little bit of practice, though, I have said that on this show, I will continue to say it, that if it wasn't for Shabbat, I would have worked myself into a heart attack a long time ago. I am a repentant but uncured workaholic, and I will work every minute of every day if permitted to. And Shabbat has been the thing that has probably saved my life by forcing me to step away from all of it for 24 hours every week. And it can be that life-changing. So I'm really glad that you found this article and brought it. All right. I appreciate taking that's it. That's the three of us. I appreciate both of you taking some time out of your very busy day, whatever time zone we happen to be in. And I'm looking forward to having you on the next show. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, a pleasure.
Thank you, Leon.
Thank you.
I'd like to take just another minute to thank my co-hosts as well as Catchpoint for giving us space to do fun things like this show. I also want to thank the news cycle itself for providing a never-ending source of education, intrigue, amusement, and horror. But most of all, I'd like to thank everyone watching or listening. Here at Catchpoint, we recognize there's an almost infinite amount of content that you can consume, and we really appreciate you taking some time out of your day to listen to us. Thank you again. For Catchpoint News Catchup, I'm Leon Adato.